Jewish students at Cooper Union are in the library as protesters pound on the door. Listen with the sound on, he says. This is crazy. Listen. So they're chanting free, free Palestine while banging on the door, trying to get into a room where they've secured a handful of Jewish students. And let me see what tweets we have. Carol Markowitz says Jewish students had to be evacuated via tunnels for their safety in New York City. Look, I think the far left, I think they're deranged. I think they're psychotic. I think they're dangerous mobs. We saw that video out of Minneapolis where they attacked the elderly man in his car, chased him down, and then tried breaking out his windows.
All because he was like there by accident. Oh, sorry.
You kicked the power.
I did something.
Yeah, you kicked the plug.
I did it wrong.
Anyway, yeah, they tried. They'd kill this guy. Yeah. Because what happens is, it's the snowflake in the avalanche. What I talk about all the time. I don't think it's fair to say that your average person at one of these protests has the motive and intention to kill a person. What happens is someone walks down the street and one person shoves them. The next person runs up and kicks them. The next person runs up and kicks them again. Each of them thinking, I'll kick the guy. But after getting kicked 5 or 6 times, you're dead. Yeah. And so this is what you see when this guy is pulling out through this car. I think these students, if that door was opened, would have been mercilessly beaten and hospitalized.
Does anyone have the slightest idea what these protesters purported to want to do with the students?
Well, no, the funny thing of what you talking earlier about language, right? So when we talk about it here, what scares me the most about this is the use of language. So they're not saying hurt the Jews, they're saying free Palestine, which gives them it allows them to to terroristically threaten these people without having to admit that what they want to do is hurt another person, because it's changing the language ever so subtly so that you don't have to feel as if you're threatening someone or making terroristic threats. It's very different, and you can make these kids believe that what they're pushing for is actually a noble cause.
They don't believe anything. These people are not sitting down and discussing the merits of the region. That is not what's happening. Every one of the protests I've ever been to with these leftists, 90% have no idea what's going on. One of my favorite moments was during Occupy Wall Street. And what they would chant, the communists would chant anti-capitalista. They'd go, anti-capitalista. And okay, I get it. And you would hear 90% of the people saying Adiga Bado Bisto, because they have no idea what's being said.
Let's go, Brandon.
And so there's a live stream I've got where I asked the guy, I was like, what are you chanting? And he's like, oh, I'm chanting with him. I'm like, I know, what are you saying? And he goes, oh, I don't know. And he just tries to walk away. But it's gibberish nonsense. That's why those people are so dangerous. They're mindless zombies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If what somebody had got them chanting was a direct threat to the people in that building, would those same people have followed through and continued bashing on the door? You believe that they would?
I believe that. I have been to these riots.
The most rabid of them, yes.
No. The most banal of them.
Yeah, the most banal of them.
I have seen people who showed up, not even knowing a protest was happening, chuck a brick at a cop. Because when the avalanche begins, they're all doing one small thing they don't find unreasonable. A single person picking a brick out of the ground and chucking it at a person is an extreme act. But what happens is one guy, this happened in, I think it was, I can't remember where it was, might have been DC. One guy starts pulling bricks out of the ground. He walks up to the ground and then he starts like chipping away at the brick. Another guy walks up and then pops it up. Another guy grabs it. Then one guy tosses it to a guy. Then the guy gets it and just throws it. Yeah. And that guy has no idea what's going on. That was not the actions of one person who consciously decided to pick up a brick and then throw it at a cop. It was a bunch of people screaming in anger, not paying attention. And then all of a sudden someone tosses a brick to him and he catches it and he just chucks it without a second thought. Yeah. Look when they went to Tucker Carlson's house and started banging on the door. Or when they went to Cassandra Fairbanks' house with a bunch of fireworks and started blasting them at her house, then the media lied about it even happening.
Listen, the problem here isn't these animals. They're a problem, but they're not the problem. The problem is that the institutions that have been given and accepted the responsibility for protecting human beings from animals have refused to do so.
Well, and they've refused to do so not just in a physical sense, right? They've refused to do so in an intellectual sense. So the institutions that are supposed to be raising our nation's leaders to be, thought leaders to be intellectual, to be critical thinkers, to think deeply, to examine all sides of an issue, to make decisions in a good and appropriate and moral and ethical way. They have abandoned their obligation to do that. And they have instead force-fed them, indoctrinated them in these wasteful ideologies that are intent essentially on destroying American culture and society.
Yes, that's true, but that is not what we are seeing here.
No, these are monsters.
These students
I would say that.
don't know what's going on, don't care what's going on. All they know is one of their friends says, "Are you going to the protest?" They went, "Okay." And then they said, here's the time and the date. And they showed up. Then people started chanting something. So they chanted along. The people banging on the door right now, that individual banging on the door just thinks they're making noise. They don't think in their mind they're terrorizing people. Mm-hmm. But the other people behind them hear the banging and the fervor, and they're imagining the people banging on the door are trying to bust it down to hurt people. Mm-hmm. So when the door finally breaks open and they all rush in, one person in a mask is going to run up and smack one of the Jewish students. And then someone seeing that will start filming and chasing after. And then I've seen this in person. I was in San Jose at a Trump rally and I watched them beat one of their own protesters. So what happened was,
why did they do that?
They did not know who he was, and it did not matter. The moment he backed away, he became an other to the mob, and they chased him and started punching him. Why? Because he was running. That's it. They chased him down, punched him in the mouth, and then I was talking to him. He's like, I'm here protesting Trump. They punched me. He's bleeding from the mouth. There's a crowd of people. One of these guys, and that's why I said, like, these things are ridiculously dangerous. It's mindless. Yeah. When a scuffle breaks out, I'll give you another story. I was at Columbia University. Mike Cernovich was speaking. This was several years ago. And one person in the crowd recognized me and didn't like me. So he yelled, "That's Tim Pool. Do not let him film you." So you know what I did? When he pointed, I looked with where he was pointing because I know how these mobs operate. Everybody turns in my direction and they're looking for the person against them. So I turned with them. And I'm going like, "Where's he at?" And everybody's shrugging like, "Where's he at?" And he's like, "This guy right here." And I'm like, and then someone walks up to a random photographer and starts screaming at him about he's the problem. And I'm like, because they couldn't identify the other. Because I know what happens at these events. You go to one of these protests, and if you are discernibly an other, one person will push you. Then as soon as the fighting happens and you start running away, they'll start chasing after you for no reason. Just because they're like, "Oh, they're running, I'm running." Then when they see other people running after him, they'll be like, "What's happening? What's happening? Why is he running? Get him, get him." Yep. Then they shove you down and start kicking you literally for no reason.
Right. We've seen this in our literature for years too. I mean, it's in Orwell, it's in Kafka, it's in Ray Bradbury. It's
Luke
all over the
Rudkowski
place.
was in Germany. We were in Hamburg during, I think it was the G20. And Luke was with a German journalist walking down the street when some random dude yelled Nazi Schweinhund at him. And then he was like, "What?" And then all of a sudden, random people who were sitting on the ground ran up and started punching Luke in the back and in the head. And then Luke and this journalist, not Nazis, were there just filming things, started running. People were chasing them. They made it to first responders who then treated them for scrapes and bruises. Mm-hmm. And watch Luke's video of this. It's a question of, why did these random people who were just sitting on the ground run up and start punching Luke for no reason? This is what these mobs do.
Yep. So you're saying they're just driven by themselves. They're just like driven by.
It's like a feeding frenzy, like a shark.
Yeah,
like piranhas.
It's
or those sharks that like.
Watch the video of the car in Minneapolis that drove through the protest very slowly. Nobody got hit. As soon as he starts driving away, people will run after the car, and it's innocuous. It's a person will have a camera and they'll run towards the car just to film it. People behind him see him chasing the car, so they chase. Then the whole crowd sees a bunch of people running and they all run to see what's going on. Eventually they surround the car and then someone goes, "That's him." No one has any idea or any information. And then one guy who hears that thinks he must be a bad guy and starts kicking and stomping on the car. Other people join in. Old guy in the car is freaking out like, "Why am I being attacked?" And then tries to escape.
Imagine what it says to these students too when the university does not have the people protesting violently removed, but instead has to evacuate them as if they were being
rightfully targeted.
Rightfully targeted, right?
Yeah.
So what does that say to them? That they're not actually there to protect you, the one who's being assaulted, the one who's being,
We saw this in University of Washington as well. So
Yes.
there were these big, basically pro-Hamas protests at the University of Washington, and some students were speaking, like a dean was there, and some students were speaking to the dean saying, these people want us dead, they want to kill us. And the dean was trying to get the Jewish students who were complaining about it, who were in tears, trying to get them to move on and stop complaining about it so that the pro-terrorist mob could continue their protest.
Which they're doing in your live chat right now, by the way.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. I mean, there are 3 or 4 people who just keep repeating the same thing. I mean, it's wild.
Welcome to the internet.
Yes, well, you have become a crypto Jew.
That's not true. Cassandra Fairbanks, our booker, proves that we're actually anti-Semitic.
No, that is.
So you're both crypto Jew and anti-Semitic at the same time. That's amazing.
Well, that's okay because the Jews are both control the world's money supply and also people who are scavengers who live off the products.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.